broadcast is live.
Here we go. We are live.
This is very similar to my son's Zoom kindergarten class now, you know. You're the teacher, I'm him.
Exactly.
Please unmute me so that I can say something. Hello, everyone. Turn off the sound from my phone. You did a good job.
You this time instead of me.
That was me. I was going to say, you did a good job. Not.
Gotta be one of us.
Yes, exactly.
We're professionals, just not professional YouTubers.
We are not. Yes, no. If we would promote or tweet about this if we were professional, more than we didn't. This is our first week. We did very little. Welcome to Agent Talk, everyone.
I tweeted out like a full 30 minutes before we started.
Did you? Okay, there you go. That's all we needed. Welcome to Agent Talk, everyone.
Oh yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, let's do our official intro with Dongwon and Seth. You know, as everyone knows, this is a weekly live stream where two of the most incredible agents in the industry come together to talk with cutting edge technology, sharpness about what's going on. The reason why we do this, of course, is to give an opportunity for those who might not be able to be moving to New York, might not be able to get an internship, might not be able to be part of the NYU publishing course, and sort of give them opportunity to get, you know, the close-eyed view of what it means to be an agent, and hopefully help you become better ones if you are in the industry. This isn't a show for writers unless you want to be an agent. Of course, the show is free as well, but we would love if you could donate some money to people of color in publishing. The link is down below. So welcome. I interrupted Dongwon. What were you going to say? What did I?
Oh, no. I was just going to ask how your week's been going, you know? What's new in the world of Fishman Literary Agent?
Yo, this is the world. This is we talked about it last week, but this is so my son started kindergarten. So at 8:45 PST, he starts school, and then it's going to get longer and longer. Right now, it just started. So my wife and I are switching off, and today it was all me. And so basically, it's like because 8:45 is 11:45 New York time, and I'm dealing with the kids beforehand, anyways. I basically get like 20 minutes to like put out major fires. Or rather throw water at them and then run away. And then I'm gone for a bit and come back. And so I feel like that's going to be the new thing I need to figure out is how to do this. Because it's not like I get up early. Getting up early means getting up at like 5 o'clock, maybe even earlier because my one kid wakes up. So I'm complaining, but that's the new reality of what's going on. That said, you know, the week has been fine. There's been some new people I'm looking to work with. I, as a writer, have 2 things I finished that I'm going to be sending out very soon. I'm really, really excited about them. And this is one of them. I'm sorry, I'm going on, but one of them is the first time that I'm like really actively connecting with my clients about it. Which I had like a moral ambiguity. Yeah. I was like, should I not use any of them, or should I use only them? And after a long talk with my own agent, we decided to, you know, ask my own clients. So that'll be kind of fun. And I also wrote a board book. I don't know if you know what a board book is, but that's like the cardboard versions of picture books, the ones that kids can break up. And I wrote something that's in that space, which, you know, probably if it did sell, would sell for like $1,500 because those things are hard to make money on, but regardless, it's been really fun, and that's so I've had a pretty.
Are board books for a different audience than a standard picture book? This is the thing. I know very little about this market, so.
Well, the truth of the matter is, a very large number of board books actually do originate from picture books, and they're like, "Here's a picture book. Let's turn it into a board book."
Right
after it's succeeded and it's become like a classic. So there's actually a lot of board books that you've seen. That said, there's a number of board books are for the youngsters who can't turn the page. Like my 16-month-old still can't turn the pages on like the bigger picture books and will rip them. Yeah. So it is for the youngsters. And so it doesn't mean that. So that means sometimes it's really like 2 lines on a page. And the conceit of mine is that they turn them so quickly and they don't, because they can't read and pay attention, that I often am like, can only read 2 words on a page. So basically it's 2 stories. One is the full story, and the other is the first 2 words on each page, reading straight through, actually like tell a story too. So a parent can be like, and then he went to the bathroom, and
So it's like you did a picture book acrostic based on your own experience as a dad. Like you're just bringing everything to the table on this one.
So we'll see. We'll see. I think it'll be the kind of thing where it'll be like, this is a good idea, but the actual content of these two things aren't good enough, and that's what we deal with as agents all the time.
Right,
So what about you? How's your week?
My week's been all right. It's been one of those weeks that's both very slow and very busy. I mean, nothing like major is cooking in a lot of ways, but lots of tiny little things have been coming up. So lots of no putting out major fires, but just like lots of little like, oh, this needs to be taken care of, this needs to be taken care of, or this email's been sitting here for a minute, those kind of things. So it's sort of your classic end of August kind of week. Things are slow, things are starting to pick up a little bit as we head into September. Publishing is very much on that sort of back to school schedules when things really start taking off. There's been mixed reports of whether August was actually slower this year or not. It's hard to say, but for me, it definitely has been a little quiet heading into September. I'm also planning on a move right now, so that is complicating my schedule significantly. So trying to like clear some space around that and take care of a few things. But also prepping
a move right in the middle of the fall submission.
It's great. It's great timing. And in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of everything else that's going on. But life comes at you when it comes at you sometimes.
It does.
And starting to prep a submission to go out in September, and I'm realizing, it's the end of August. I thought
it's tomorrow.
I could have this ready by now, but so I'm going to spend some time doing that over the next few days. So
yeah, that's cool. I also forgot to mention that things in Gurner West is which I run is very exciting. We will be announcing a hire. Which is very, very exciting, next week. And then we are doing like a whole load of research into a different sort of area of the field that we don't get to play around in very much, and trying to figure out whether we're going to hire someone in there too. So, to have even the permission to be able to do this means that just quietly means that our company's doing okay, and that feels good. So, so that's good. That's it. I mean, there are warning bells around town, like the printing press issues. There's not enough printing, which by the way, isn't COVID is exacerbating.
Right.
Yeah. But I don't know if everyone knows, but when Michelle Obama existed, in terms of her book coming out, and there was such a demand for it that basically all these printing presses just printed that book and everything else got screwed. So it's we love you, Michelle Obama. Thanks for helping out Penguin Random House.
I mean, this happened a number of times. This happened last year with what's his name, Wolf's book.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the problem is we've lost most of the printing presses in the United States, at least. And a lot of them have shifted over to making cardboard because cardboard is more profitable. And then on top of that, the administration put in tariffs. So we ended up in a position last year where it wasn't just our ability to get books printed, but the paper supply became very limited.
Yeah.
So we couldn't import paper. There were no mills making paper. And then the printing presses were all backed up. So I had 3 or 4 books just move out of the season and get bumped, or, had their print runs impacted or things like that. Or, we're starting to see more and more gaps between reprinting, right? So just to break down this slightly technical issue a little bit, the thing that usually happens is you get the orders come in from the stores. And so the publisher puts together their initial print run, right? Those print runs are getting smaller and smaller as the stores are ordering less and less stock up front and becoming more nimble, right? So the big fear about the new Barnes & Noble reconfiguration with James Daunt coming in is that they're really cranking down the number of books that they're ordering into the stores initially, down to 1 to 2 copies for most titles.
Yeah.
Amazon also does this too. They order very few copies up front. They take a small quantity. When those sell through, then they reorder, right? But the problem is, if you're a publisher, then you're trying to predict how many books you need to print before you start selling them. So those print runs are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which is the thing that Seth, you and I have seen over the course of our career.
Yeah.
Now, this is compounded with a second problem of printing is getting slower, right? So smaller print runs only make sense if you can quickly re-up and quickly do a new run and get that to consumers, right? So the idea was, let's do drop ship marketing or drop ship printing and get books to consumers faster the way, say, Walmart does their supply chain. The problem is our supply chain is not set up for that because that's just not how book printing works. Right. So people are trying to apply this internet sales logic to book selling, but the problem is our infrastructure is designed in a way that doesn't make any sense and that doesn't work. So we're caught in this weird bind that's 90% logistics, but also there's a big chunk of it that is just the fundamental strategy of how bookstores are going to survive, how publishers survive. And then all of this is sort of creating this a little bit of a churn that authors are getting caught up in. So the challenge is for some people like me and Seth is, okay, how do we navigate that? How do we try and insulate our authors from that? And there's no real good answers here, but it's a lot of the navigation that we're having to think about strategically over the next year, 5 years, 10 years, right? So this isn't a new issue. This is the new sort of reality of what we're dealing with in terms of how the hell do we get books into stores in enough quantity that we can actually sell enough books that the publisher will make enough money that they want to keep working with that writer, right?
Right. There's so many catch-22s because everything you said is completely a great breakdown. And there's just for everyone's knowledge, one of the biggest issues in the publishing industry is returns. And so basically, I don't know if you know this, but like if Barnes and Noble, takes 3,000 copies, which judging from what was just said, that's a pretty decent buy. But then they sell 200 and they're like, we're done with this. And we return those 2,800. Then those that cost, they can return it. They can return it and get paid for that. And the publisher eats a lot of those costs and the author eats a lot of those costs because the publisher like basically holds on to a chunk of money to be able to cover the cost of these returns. So, betting big isn't always like there's the good news about this is that a nimble ordering system is theoretically like better for the bottom line. The problem is that like Dongwon was saying is that we don't have copies just sitting around. So either the publisher has to be willing to have copies sitting around, or you have these delays that show up on Amazon. And you don't know how many times we send emails to editor being like, it says ships in 1 to 2 weeks. It says temporarily out of stock. And so many times the editors write back and they say, they have the truck. The truck is there. It's just not unloaded. And you're like, great. So it's just this whole load of whatever. Okay.
It's hard. Totally that can like really put the brakes on your sales trajectory, right? Like you want that big burst up front. And so you can hit, New York Times bestseller list, things like that and get all that attention. But, our way of thinking hasn't caught up to the fact that the practicalities and the logistics of the situation are getting in the way. So, I think there's a lot of, churn, something happening right now. So,
and the other thing, basically this also punishes success. If something's an accidental success, you're screwed, it doesn't mean you're screwed, but it does mean like, you're not going to have books. And also in the holidays, exactly. If one famous person reads your book and like pushes it unexpectedly, then you're in the holidays, then you're in trouble. Okay.
And then the trap is the only things that succeed are things that the publisher already thinks are going to succeed, right? So the things that succeed are the stuff that was going to succeed, and therefore there are no surprises. Therefore, we just sort of work our way into a death spiral as an industry. All right.
Believe it or not, we're going to talk about positive things. We are going to talk about positive things. Wait. This week,
I think this is one that I just think is an interesting topic. Clearly, I think it's like a cool nuance. It's a thing that people don't really think about a lot, and I think it's something we should pay more attention to. It's not all bad. It's not all good, but we're moving on to the good stuff now. So please continue.
No, it is. We could do a whole episode on that. So actually, we decided. Should I talk about our upcoming plans a little bit right here in the context of this? Okay. Yeah. So, basically, a little bit with I admit the kindergarten is causing some of this to happen, but also Dongwon and I found that we, are sort of planning these things a little bit later in the week, and we feel like we're sort of hitting a point where there's still plenty of things to share and to say, and we also have a lot of guests we really want to bring on and talk about things. So there's a lot more to do, but we feel like what we could use a little bit of a recharge and also a re-understanding of what's going on. And also I need to figure out what's going on actually with my kid, whether we need to move the time from 10 a.m. PST just to a different time. So basically there's a couple things like that. What we want to do is make this the last episode for a little bit. We're going to take a couple week break. We'll talk more about that later. But in the context of that, we were thinking, how can we end this in a way that's like just a sort of a positive run? You know, we've been telling you all these nitty gritty things, and a lot of the nitty gritty seems to be couched in negative because it's like warnings and like, and this and that. So we wanted to take a moment, and we already started this in a bit of a what can look like negative thing. Sorry. So we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about success stories. Basically, we just want to brag a lot. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I hope you enjoy. Let's start it up. Don, what do you want to talk about first?
Well, I was going to make a joke first, or talk about this thing that I talk about sometimes, where if you put two literary agents together in the corner of a bar, it just like a black hole opens there as we just like unload all of our negative feelings and complaints that we've been storing up for months.
And we can't even talk to anyone else either. So like this is like the first,
Exactly. And so it's only other agents really understand what we go through sometimes, and it's hard to complain about those things. You can't do it to your clients. You got to put a positive face on it in front of your clients. You can't do it to editors. And people outside the business have no idea what we're talking about. Totally. So you put two agents in the corner, and instantly it just opens up, that pit of despair. But that's just part of the process, and that isn't to say that there aren't utterly fantastic things about this job that we really love. We wouldn't do this if we didn't love it. So, I think figuring out that balance is important, but you're right that I don't want the show to feel too negative as a result, just because what we are talking about largely the challenges and the issues there. So I feel like you asked me a question that I didn't ansser, and now
I was just asking you. I was like, where do you want to start? That was
yeah. I don't know. So I think the place to start really is like, what were those watershed moments in your career that you felt like you went from this level to the next level? Like, where did you feel like you leveled up, and what were the things that like did that for you?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, and I feel like a lot of the way an agent's success works, of course, is the success of their clients. I think when I was younger, I might have just immediately even talked about like selling a book for a decent amount of money, which is something, but I actually don't. I think it's more of the success of a book. I did get quite lucky with my first book, but I think one of the very first levels of leveling up was actually before that, when I was just when I was repping the Sterling Lord's audio and a lot of short stories for them, and just was having like a lot of success there. And just sort of getting my stride and feeling that, and selling some things for real amounts of money. And I think that was a start. But the real big level up was definitely my first client, first sale, which was Thea Albrecht, the Tiger's Wife. And the thing that I think, and this is, again, I to be honest, I don't want to make this like a brag session. What I want to do is talk about the things that we did that helped the things work. Now, sometimes it's just like luck, and you're like very happy that these things succeeded. Right. But one thing that happened with the Tiger's Wife that I don't think a lot of people know is, so I sold that at auction to Dial Press, which is part of Random House, then basically became nothing and is now back in a different form. And the book got moved over to Random House, blah, 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 during the 2008 craziness. And I would say I'm very lucky because the editor, Noah Eaker, was one of the few people in the entire publishing industry that came out like with some positives during that. Instead of being fired, his boss ended up moving from Dial to take over all of Little Random House, which is the imprint of Random House. And he basically got promoted, and his boss, who supported everything, like was higher up. So basically the book got like a lot stronger attention as opposed to less. Mm-hmm. But the thing that people don't really notice is it wasn't just like that. The thing that I did, which I'm very proud of, is that I sold the book to the New Yorker, an excerpt to the New Yorker.
That's right.
I have not sold anything else to the New Yorker. It's been 15 years. And
how many first serials have you done like over? So we call that first serial, right?
Yeah.
Which is when you take an excerpt of a book and you have it serially published somewhere, right? So it's just you take a little chunk of it and you publish it somewhere.
I've probably done 50 to 75 serials.
Really?
I do a lot of serials. It's something I still try to keep. Big serials like in Harper's or to just controlling it and getting an excerpt in Tor.com still counts as a serial. But in terms of like the big ones, not so many, 15 or so, but still the New Yorker is, or maybe even a little more than that. But then for me, it's a major strategy push, and it's also one of my things I try and do. But
I've literally never done it. So, like I know about them, but like I've never
it depends also. It depends on the context
category
of
and
the
all
books, right? Exactly. So we're mainly a lot of times we're talking about literary fiction here. But I sent it to now famous playwright named Brandon Jacob Jenkins, and so he was an assistant there, and he bought it. So we, like two assistants, had this happen at the New Yorker. I had sold it to Random House to an assistant, so it's funny how that goes. But they published it as an excerpt, and then 2 months later chose Taya to be one of the 20 writers under 40, and they do that every 10 years. And she was the only author on that list that hadn't had a book published. So a year before book publication, the New Yorker anointed her as one of the 20 best writers in the world.
Yep.
And it was just like smooth sailing from that point. But it happened because of this thing that I did that I've never done again. And that to me is like, so we talk about the success of a book or whatnot. Sometimes it really is about like granular things that you try and do and build up. So that was my first, level up thing. What about you?
The metaphor I found myself using over the past couple of weeks, I don't know why, I've had this conversation a few times, but like we as agents, what we end up trying to do, sometimes it feels like we're building big metal poles in a field and hoping lightning hits one of them, right? And, every now and again, and I described someone's success recently as like a guy who was standing in the middle field full of poles and he got hit by lightning somehow instead. You know what I mean? Like there are times where you never know where that's going to come down. But you're trying to increase the odds. You're trying to increase the likelihood that lightning's going to strike.
Yeah.
And so, you did all these different things. I'm sure for that book, what happened to work was that first serial sale, right? But I'm sure there were 18 other things that you and the publisher did that had some impact, but like that was the one. It's nice when you can point to the thing and be like, oh yeah, that's what blew it up to the next level, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? You're right. Like it's like the editor did a really good job getting the best publicist on it very early. Things like that. So it was cool. So they were equipped to take advantage of it. But what about you? So what's your what's like your most notable? First thing that you remember?
Awards. I don't know. Publishing, man. For me, I've been able to be very lucky when it comes to awards, right? Or at least nominations. I've had a lot of projects, a lot of books nominated for major awards in SFF, and that's become a real strategy for me. Or something about the kind of books I like to work on tend to be stuff that's more awards facing, right? There are many of the most successful books in genre never get mentioned anywhere near an award. So it's really a different style and different type of book that you're approaching. So, for me, that was a thing that really helped establish some of those early titles, so whether that's going back to my editor days, like Mira Grant was an early one who got nominated for a bunch of stuff and things like that. So, those kind of things really helped build a reputation for me, which then let me transition that into working as an agent because people were aware of what I had been working on. And I think the one that really busted that up to the next level was The Expanse, right? The fact that I acquired the first 3 books in that series, edited the first 2, and that's one where you get a TV show out of it, and it changes everything,
Yeah.
And for the first few years, that was a TV show on Sci-Fi Channel. I don't know that it had the biggest audience, but within genre, it really sort of changed the game. And then now, I think it's become a much bigger success, and more people seem to be aware of it now that it's on Prime.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, sometimes it's that lightning striking thing. There was no way I could have predicted that series was going to, get picked up by some Breaking Bad veterans and turned into a TV show. It just was bit by bit by bit, that got more and more attention over time until it landed in front of the right people, who managed to turn that into a thing. And, I don't think it hurt that at the time, one of the co-authors was, working for George Martin. The other guy was good friends with them. So I think they were just in this nexus of connections and people, and that helped really push up to that next level. I don't know that I had anything to do with that other than really loving the books and working on the first couple of those. But your career is really attached to the reputation of the things that you work on, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
It is about the books. It is about the writers. They're front and center. And then, we kind of ride their coattails at the same time that what we're doing is laying track in front of them so that we can ride their coattails, if that makes sense.
Well, that's a really interesting point, because I think it's really important to take a second to talk about like the humanity of agents and how I think that there's a moment in time where you're going to be like, am I a parasite? Like,
Yeah.
What did we do to deserve this financial success, or like, or like, how proud should we be about like someone's winning their award or whatever? And
Yeah.
it's so interesting because for me, I feel that even now I still feel that pop up from time to time. And sometimes it's the negative side of things. It's like, I'm not acknowledged or something. I'm like, why am I feeling this way? But the thing is that like we are this is our lives, right? And we aren't we our opinions, our beliefs, our books are representations of ourselves as well. I mean, someone else might have written it, but it's like the bookshelf that someone is perusing that has like everything that you care about, and that which we push forward, that we've made it better, that we have life and soul behind, that we've took bets on, and that we are placing our career and salary on. And so it's an interesting thing when riding the coattails is absolutely the correct term in terms of how some of this plays out, but it's riding the coattails like while having like, I don't know, somehow been quite invested in that whole process.
It's a fine balance, right? It's a fine balance because, I'm proud of the work that I do. And, I take a lot of credit for the work that I do as an editor, as an agent, as, somebody who is a business advisor or manager, all those different things, right? Like there's so many aspects to my job that I'm very proud of, but it is also really, really important to me to make sure internally, I'm also never doing this. I'm not taking credit for the writer's accomplishments, right? That's why it's never that I won an award. It's one of my clients won an award, or one of my projects that I worked on won an award. And the thing that drives me nuts is when I see public professionals out there on Twitter, and every now and again I see someone like take credit for something in a way that I'm like, yo, that's not you, right? Like I saw an editor recently tweeting about like, edits that they made to a book and how they made the book better. And I was like, no, you never do that. You never, ever do that. The writer's always a star. The writer's on the pedestal. They're the ones we're celebrating. Our job is to make sure that that pedestal is on firm ground and that it's built well and, those kind of things. And, we benefit from that financially, professionally, all those things. So it's not false modesty to say that we're riding their coattails. That is our job, right? That's what we do. I'm a professional who is paid for a service, and that payment is 15% of that, any revenue that they're making, right? So it's important to always remember that we work for the writer, right? The writer doesn't work for us. We are an employee of theirs. I mean, not like in a official sense, but I don't know. It's funny. There's so many negative portrayals of agents in media, and it's easy to feel a way about that. Not that I generally do, but I this is a little bit of a tangent, but I was playing a video game recently. I was tweeting about this the other day. This game called Alan Wake that's about like this writer who's a horror writer and kind of goes off the rails a bit. And his literary agent is a major character in the game. When he first shows up, he seems like this really like nebbishy, sleazy dude. And then by the end of the game, you're like, this guy is the most stand-up guy in this dude's life. He's got back all the time, and he's just this great side character. And it was just nice to see like an agent both like presented in a realistic way of like, oh yeah, this guy seems like a literary agent, but also like one that understands that our job is really to support somebody, right? And to be there for them when things get rough, both in their personal life and professionally, but within boundaries too. So
yeah, and I feel like you're being like much more stand up here than I am. I want to just like open up my like egotistical heart and say it's okay to feel like genuine pride and a sense of ownership, over the accomplishments of your clients, because it's your list, it's your and
I guess that's what I'm saying. It's a balance, right? Like don't also let that overrun the fact that you feel proud as hell when one of your projects does well and when one of your authors is doing well, right? And that it doesn't hurt when they go badly too, right? Because you are invested in it. And if you don't care about your projects in that way, in my opinion, it's sort of why you're doing this. You know what I mean? There are easier ways to make money than being a literary agent.
That's true. So. That's true. And it's funny. The last thing I'll say here is like, because I'm going to keep pushing this because I'm having fun being honest with you guys this far in here, is that the thing that I feel like is like that's a little interesting in this process
Mhm.
is things like the editor awards for like the Hugos or something like
Yeah.
that. You know, long form and short form. I talk about this all the time. I don't have a problem really talking about it. I just sort of knock about it, but it's sort of like, you know, yes, they should. That's nice that they have an award, but
Yeah.
like then the agents should too, because the agents like are actually the
Man,
people with the with
can you
the
imagine the bloodbath though if we had an award category? Like
oh,
all of us just like knives out in the bar going at each other. Yeah.
well, I don't know if that would happen. I mean, I think
I'm just yeah.
one of the funny things about the editorial thing is that, like, for short form, for instance, it's like 3 people get it all the time,
Sure.
and it's kind of funny because it should be some other people, like, you know, like John Joseph Adams, like, never wins it, and he like
I don't understand why he doesn't. He's
I
so
don't know why
good.
either, and he's very nice, and works with a lot of people, and
Yeah.
he started his own imprint at HMH and all this stuff. He never wins it, and
Great magazines, great anthologists, like
and I
just
think
like top of the field in my
that's
opinion.
the problem is that like Ellen Datlow deserves to win it.
Yeah, I mean she's brilliant as well. Yeah.
But that's the problem with the sci-fi world is that we're very like
Only now, I mean, for years too, the long form category was just the same names over and over again. And you know, we're starting to see some fresh names, even as some of those fresh names have been repeated a few times now.
And some of those fresh names, all of them are getting fired, so it's quite interesting. Sorry.
No, it's true. Well, anyways, yeah, we're not going to get into that. But like, you know, there's some really, really talented people who deserve to be on those lists. Some of them are on it, some of them aren't on it. And you know, it's interesting to me that, you know, David Pillay, who I used to work with at Orbit, it was years and years and years where she was doing some of the best work in the field before she ever got nominated. And she's never won, right? Not saying that she should or shouldn't. She's now the publisher of Tor. So, you know, I think she's doing just fine. But it's things to think about where, you know, the editor of the 5th season was never up for that award, right? And I think that is something to think about in terms of, okay, how do we recognize who's adding value in this field? How do we recognize who's making this space a better space? And, you know, I think, I don't know how we do that. I don't know. It's so insular. It's so inside. I don't know how Hugo voters would even know what I do versus what you do versus what Cameron McClure does versus, you know, what other great agents in the space. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question, and the only reason why I brought that up at all is basically like to say it's okay to feel that, you know, and we're humans, and I think that's one of the biggest things that you need to remember, not just about awards, but also about like the bad day when a submission letter comes in, the, you know, whatever, like sometimes you're just, you know, you're a human. So, but wait,
wait. I want to follow up on that. What is your highest high then? What was the moment where you just felt like the most, you know, feeling yourself, proud of the work that you had done, proud of a project? Like, what was it an award? Was it hitting a list? Was it doing a big deal? You don't have to name names. You can just sort of say categorically kind of type of thing.
Well, that's a great question. I mean, like, honestly, you know, like there's been a lot of like happy moments. And I do think that those are the ones that, like, the things that stand out to me are sort of the things that are tied to things I haven't seen before that I've like worked really hard hoping would happen. You know, like I do think Taya's success was one of them, but that was my first book, and I was like hard to understand what was going on. So I think the other I think
you didn't know how good you had it yet.
I didn't know how good I had it. I would say the success of Randall Munroe's What If was something I was very aware of, and also I believed in it more than the publishers did, and we got to see that bear out and got to see everything work there in like this just tremendous way, and that was really, really fun. And I do think the you know, when we talk about game changers, I mean, like the two things in that space. One is that you recommending Kate Beaton to me. Her being on my list, just being on my list was something that made me so proud and opened up all these doors. But and then the other game changer to that end was also like it was Ann Leckie. Like I represented some great sci-fi and fantasy and up to that point. But when Anne started winning all these awards, and so I remember basically her winning the Nebula. That was the first of these things. And I remember being like, Neil Gaiman was up that year. I was like nervous for, you know, whatever, could she win and beat these things out? And then it just kept going and going. You know, what that did is that I feel like I was like a nobody in the sci-fi community. And then all of a sudden, like I repped the person who won all these awards. And it was this specific moment where it wasn't about me being able to brag it. It was about just feeling, when you say feeling on top of a thing, is that like I felt like I could now talk to people in a way that would command a set of respect that I wasn't getting before, and there was a noticeable difference, and so it felt good. So that's how I felt on top of the world. It's like when these things were going on.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. It feels, again, it's egocentric, but those are like the obvious moments. So
yeah. Well, and the other tricky thing is we don't have favorite children, right? We love all of our clients equally, which is genuinely true. Actually, I said it as a joke, but I there's no one I work with who I don't believe in 100%, who I don't fight for 100%.
Totally.
There are certain moments that stand out as moments where, you had a particular success, or you had a particular relationship, or change things for you. And that doesn't mean that we love that client more than other people or things like that, or that we don't work as hard for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything leads to another. They're building blocks that, like, and I think that, I know a lot of authors, about connections, and they know, like, it helps them get a blurb or whatever, but like the success of an agent's whole list helps build the whole list.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you, yes, a younger agent has like just as good an opportunity to do certain things, but it would be naive to say that like a big agent doesn't have a little bit more sway in terms of being able to at least give whoever they have in their hand a chance at a certain thing.
Totally.
And that's because of a build. That's the building on the success of everything. So what about you though? What's your like riding high happiness aside from everything that's been happening this year with all your great awards?
Well, actually, that's the one I was going to say. In a lot of ways, sure. I think in the life cycle of an agent, I think 2 years and 5 years are two major breakpoints, right? Like the second year in is when your first projects are hopefully hitting the market, or you're making your first sales, one of the two. And then at 5 years is really the second wave of stuff, right? Just the way the cycle of stuff happens in publishing. That's when your contracts are re-upping. That's when your sort of major projects are really hitting the market at that point, ideally. So, for me, this year's been kind of really of a banner year. Time War has been winning a bunch of awards, has really garnered a level of attention and praise and affection from the readership that has really moved me in a lot of ways. Like it, and it's in part because it's such an unusual little book. It's an epistolary novella that we somehow managed to publish in hardcover. That it was just one of the projects where everything came together. Everyone loves those two writers. Everyone loves them working together. Title was great. Package was great. Publisher killed it. Like all those different aspects really came together in a way that has led to the kind of success that we've seen in terms of both in sales but also the awards. And I mentioned earlier that I built my career on awards to some extent, but really I built my career on award nominations. I counted up the number of times I've had projects nominated for the Hugos recently. But the other thing I realized when I did that was this year was the first time I've ever won in one of the major fiction categories. And, I had a very nice day where I had two projects win, in novel for Arcady Martin and then novella for Max and Amal. So that to not only have never won in those categories, even though, I've had opportunities to do so in the past, to have two win on the same day was quite a banner day for me. So, I think that really felt very affirming in a lot of ways of like, oh, yes, I know what I'm doing. I know how this business works. I'm very proud of these projects. And these are just incredible, worthy projects that I completely adore. And then, kind of similar to what you were saying about like Anne Leckie and about Kate Beaton, for me, an early success that was really important as an agent was when I got to sign Alyssa Wong. And she is an incredibly brilliant writer. She was winning a bunch of short story awards or awards for her short fiction at that point, and a bunch of nominations. And basically, it was like a feeding frenzy. Every agent in the field was kind of gunning for her one way or another. And I think she was actually feeling quite pressured by all of that attention. And so when she ended up deciding to go with me, it felt really validating in a lot of ways of like, I handled this well. I played my cards right. I really connected with her on the work that she wanted to do and all those things. And it was this moment where I think that was very transformative for me, because I think it really put me on a lot of people's radars that suddenly they're like, oh, wait, who is this person? Right. Like I had shown up on the scene again after being absent for several years. And yeah, it was nice. People recognized me, and I was immediately signing clients out of the gate, which was also really great. But, I think getting someone who had so many eyes on her in the way that she did at that time really unlocked a lot of doors for me and helped me sort of hit a new plateau in terms of awareness and ability to sign clients and ability to sell projects. And people had to take me even more seriously than they had before. And that was a really big moment for me. Yeah.
And you said you played I remember that moment. And, and you said you played your cards right now. Obviously there's all sorts of ways you can play cards when it comes to that, but is there anything in very particular that you remember that you were like, oh, I'm going to do that? Or like, this was the thing, or this was, was the answer could be no. I'm just curious.
Honestly, it was sticking to my guns in terms of my ethics and how I approach things. I spent the entire time saying, this is about your work, right? I was focused on the fact that I wanted to work with her because I loved her work, right? And it was about the fiction that she was putting out there, the stories that she was telling, right?
Not the awards.
It wasn't the awards. It wasn't her, the fact that she was Asian American. It wasn't like any of these things. It was, you wrote a fucking great story. And I think you have the talent to do something more, right? So it was that aspect. And then making it always clear, this is your decision. There's no rush. You make this decision when you want to make it. I'm here. I'm happy to talk, happy to answer questions, happy to be helpful to you. No pressure, never pressure, right? This is, if we do this, I work for you. This isn't me trying to set the rules of this game. This isn't me, somebody had shown up to a meeting with her with, a contract ready to be signed. And I think that really, I hate that. Agents do that all the time. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Right? How do you treat somebody like that? So, for me, it was always about treat somebody with respect, make it clear that they have agency, no pun intended. And that it's their decision at the end of the day. Hold on. My computer is trying to restart to do an update. Do not do that right now. So for me, those were the things. And it was just a lesson to me that the way you succeed in this business is by deciding what's important to you and following that, right? Don't chase the thing just because it's chaseable, right? So
you're going to hate whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're going to come with me while I open the...
It's recognizing that you do business a certain way, and the most important thing is to do business the way you do it, rather than trying to, do something that you think will work for cynical reasons or for purely for tactical reasons. So,
yeah, I agree. And you know what? Some agents are going to get people that way. Some agents are going to do that. But like, basically, what I would like to say to that is probably I don't want to work with that client.
Exactly.
So
or that client will regret it and maybe come back later. You know what I mean?
Like, that also happens too.
You can't save people from making the mistakes that they're going to make. Is the other lesson I've learned in this business.
I think that and that is a good and big moment. And I think that you make me think of like nowadays, and I'm sure that you're in the same spot. Like established good big writers, when they are unhappy with their agent, like will come to me and I can compete for them. And there was a time when that wasn't happening, for sure. And I was like, I would be heartbroken that like this incredible writer who I knew I would do a great job for, or give anything to work with, will like sign with someone else without even like connecting to me. Which means that I was doing something wrong. And I actually did change the way I sort of presented myself. But made myself a little bit more available and like connected.
For me, Scott Lynch was a big moment around that too, right? Like Scott had sold his books unagented way back when. And, he ended up signing me because I ran into him at a party at some con and we talked in the corner about Japanese naval tactics, if I remember correctly, right? Like just like some insane bullshit conversation you have with a writer in the dark corner of a party. But, he was inclined to think of me favorably because, I was close friends with people in his circle. And, I had people he trusted who vouched for me because I was good to them or I was good to a friend of theirs 10 years ago, right? Like, honestly, that was the thing that led to that. And then I managed to sign him without anyone else being even in that race, right?
And what's funny is that it doesn't always work, right? I remember hanging out with Ted Chiang before he signed with Kirby Kim, who's my agent. And I wasn't like really gunning for him. That's the thing. We're not necessarily gunning for people. Like Mary Robinette, I just became friends with her. and then at some point in time it comes back around, and and actually there was a very when she met up with me to talk about something, and then in the middle of it I was like, I just need to be clear, are we talking about this or this? And she said, we're not talking about agenting. And I was like, okay. But I had to ask her, because at some point it seemed like it was almost like, wait, are we on a date or are we not on a date? And we weren't, but then soon thereafter we were. And I think that that's one of the things that's interesting, is you just sort of, the lesson there is like, be good people and stick to your guns.
Yeah. You know? The best moments of my career have come just by being myself and just saying, you know what, like, I like this person, I'm friends with this person. If that leads to business, great. I'm not looking for that though. That's not my goal. Right. And you know, behaving in a way where you are just kind to people because you don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now is the thing that has paid off for me more than anything else. Right.
Yeah. Well, what's your next one then? What's your, like, I mean, and mind you, when I say that I've been doing this longer than you. Yeah. Like, I completely consider you like my entire, like, we're the exact same boat here. But I guess that. But I guess it has been a bit, you know, in terms of like, like, what is your next set of goals? Like, now that you swept the awards, like, and you had that happen, like, what's next?
It's kind of you to say so. You've sold a lot more books than I have. You made a lot bigger deals than I have had, those kind of things. So it's very kind of you to say so. That said, I think we are at different points in our careers in a number of ways, even though, like, we're also peers in other ways, right? For sure. I think my next big goal, and it's hard to make it a goal, and I struggle. I try not to make it a goal, but
allow it. Come on, it's a safe space here. It's only online. Everyone can see
it's funny because I think usually watches the stream. So my colleague Kim A. Kirtland, who's an agent at our agency, who she was a guest on the show. Sorry. Her first young adult novel came out this week, and she hit the New York Times bestseller list for hardcover. Right out of the gate, first deal, first book hits the list. I've been doing this 15 years. I don't have a book on the New York Times bestseller list. So I'm like, God damn. All right. I got to do that now. Yeah. I think that.
No, I find that surprising. I had no idea that you hadn't, because to me, it seems like it's synonymous with the success that you've had.
Yeah.
But
Thank you. I mean, and like, I have plenty of books that have sold very nicely, right? We have great track records. So everyone is delighted with the numbers that we've sold. But it's just like hitting the list is a specific thing, because sometimes it's either like, I've had book launches that would have hit in any other week, just like got blown out by a couple of other titles. So much of it is bad luck. So much of it is timing. So much of it is this, that, or the other. And, at the end of the day, the thing that matters more is how many books you sell at the end of the day than the list. But boy, I want that list sometimes. It's hard not to want it. And the other thing is getting a project that I've sold on the film and TV side actually making it to the screen. That is another thing that I want to see.
I couldn't agree with you more about that one. And I have like some things theoretically greenlit, but like, it's fun to discover. Hi, Kime. Congratulations.
Hey, Kime. Oh no, everyone I talked about is on the stream.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's live too. It's not even. It's great. None of my clients even care about this, so this is great. No, but it is interesting because, that's definitely mine too in terms of a desire. And I have some things that are greenlit that I just don't know. You still don't know if they're ever gonna happen. I mean, then COVID doesn't make it easier. And it's like, please, so I can just see what it's like.
It's such a long road. It's such a long road, and it's such a difficult road. And no matter how good something looks, sometimes everything's set up beautifully, and then just sits there, or falls off, or whatever it is. But you just keep pushing it.
Well, and what's interesting is that like I'm doing very well. My clients are great. Like, life is good. We're selling good books, and I have a number of things like continuously doing that. So there's zero complaints here. But it's very interesting to see how like there's always different levels of agenting in terms of, and I don't mean like how good an agent is. I think that because part of it's still that lottery. Like, you could still just have a client who just does very, very well, and then also writes a book a year or 1.5 books a year. So when there's this hilarious moment at the year where we have this rundown of all the agents at Gernert, and our agents do really well. We're like, we hit above our weight. We're very happy. And we like pull up all the numbers, and then there's a clear recognition that all of our numbers together And I'm talking some really big deals, some really big successes.
And then there's John Grisham.
And then there's John Grisham. And it's just like, if you have, and so that, and I mean, listen, that's not my like goal is to get a John Grisham. But when we talk about like different things, like, you know, a John Grisham is like an industry changing thing. In fact, he's probably bigger than most of the other industry changing people. Like Baladachi's definitely one of them, but he's like way a step above Baladachi. And, you know, there's like 3 people at that level. So it's interesting because there's always like a thing. You could always like go for a thing. It's so,
you know, there's a way in which like my scale is completely broken because, you know, my cousin is Nicholas Sparks' agent, right? And that was the first.
I guess I always forget that.
It was the first book. She pulled that out of not even a slush pile. She pulled that out of other agents' rejected slush is where she found Nick Sparks. And that was her first project, right? And so for me, it's always been like, well, never doing that, you know what I mean? So, but it also has set the tone for me in a certain way of seeing how she does business, seeing, you know, the level that she works at, you know, doing all those movies, all those film deals, all those TV deals for WWE and like those kind of things. It showed me a way to do this business that has really changed how I think about it in a way that I think I talk to other agents who don't see it the same way. And it feels weird sometimes to focus so much on Hollywood being a New York literary agent, and books are still the most important to me. But, you know, I'm very cognizant of how important film and TV can be to making an author's career lasting and to build an agent's business in a way that is long lasting.
Yeah, just like you were talking about, like the success, you know, your involvement, completely legitimate and important involvement in the Expanse, like still ripples on you because of that show, and it is true. And there is definitely a part of me that's just like I'm out here taking meetings in Hollywood, and it's shocking how instead of saying I represent Mary Robin or Ann Leckie, I say I represent 3 of the last 6 Hugo winners. Or you know what I mean? And like, because that's the only, because they'll understand that, but they won't understand any names because Hollywood's dumb. And so it's like, you know, you have to like,
or like they're excited about it. Oh, this person was a New York Times bestseller. I'm like, that means they sold like 10,000 books.
Yeah.
Your TV show needs like 3 million viewers to be considered a failure. So what are we even talking about right now?
Yeah. It's a bit of a game. So, you know,
Anyway.
What are we talking about today? This is fun.
I know we've just kind of we've covered a lot of ground, you know, in part because like talking about our career successes does cover so many different things and does touch on so many different topics. Me going off on a rant about printing presses, maybe not so much, but
well, I'm going to share a best moment though.
Sorry, go on.
Before I want to share a best moment, which is publishing and non-publishing moment. Is my client Taya Albrecht was up for the Orange Prize, which is no longer the Orange Prize. It went to the Bailey's Prize, and then it became the Women's Prize. But you know,
I think it's now the Bailey's Women's Prize.
Okay, it's a major prize in the UK, and she was up for it. And I went to grad school in England, which I loved, and I just I used this as an opportunity to take my my girlfriend to England, and we were like, oh, why there? We'll go Paris too. So we went to Hay on Wye, which is like the most amazing book festival in the world in my mind. There's a small village in Wales with like 30 bookstores, and it's just that. It's like just bookstores and pubs and fish and chips and like a festival. It's fantastic. I was in the urinal next to David Sedaris, high five, like a very exciting moment. And then right after that, we go back into to London, where I'm hanging out with my very dear friend, Joe Dunthorne, who's this incredible writer, wrote a book called Submarine, which became a movie, and you should both read and watch it, and other great books too. And then we didn't, I don't know, we had to get to, I don't know why I did this. Why do people do this? But I didn't for the actual Orange Prize. I left the night before and went with Margette to Paris. And the day of the Orange Prize, I proposed to Margette, and she said yes. And that night, Taya won the Orange Prize, and I got to write a little note to my office saying, "Hi guys, 2 things. I'm engaged, and Taya won the Orange Prize." And that was probably like the biggest day of my career. So that was very nice.
Yeah, it's a hell of a day.
So we're talking success stories. So
absolutely, what a beautiful moment.
2 big wins.
And I think in this business, in this job, there's so many beautiful moments of synchronicity, right? Where things line up, where, you'll have multiple successes or multiple things happening at once. And you just got to celebrate those moments. And it's hard
Absolutely.
I think the thing that I want people to take away from this more than anything else is to remember to celebrate the wins. It's
Absolutely.
so easy, as we've demonstrated actually even as we're trying to talk about successes, it's so easy to get caught up in the challenges. It's so easy for me, as soon as something good happens, to be like, okay, what's next then, right? Strategically, what does it mean? What email do I have to write? What thought do I have to have about how we take advantage of this, or how we prevent something else, or all those things? And it's important to stop and pause for a moment and say, no, this was a win. I need to celebrate this. This was an unalloyed good. And, take a moment, buy yourself something nice, go on a trip,
Right.
have a cocktail, whatever it is, right? And so trying to reminding myself that I did a deal, I'm going to sit and I'm going to have a martini now, or, we're going to open some champagne or something like that is really, really important. And it feels egotistical, but Seth, you're absolutely right that your ego is the thing that is going to protect you in moments where it's harder, right?
Yeah.
Your ego is really important to making sure that you push and what you're doing and all those things. So, really embrace those moments so you remember them when you need them later.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank
And
you guys
also,
for dealing with us.
celebrate them because it's worth celebrating. I mean, that's the thing. So
Yeah, and we appreciate you guys like coming with us again. We know we talked a lot about ourselves here, but here's to your futures as well. Woo Woo asks some questions if you have any. Hi Woo Woo, good to see you again. So the highs of successes are definitely worth all the challenges along the way. I mean, I think that perhaps there can be instances where that doesn't happen, and I think if agenting, as we've spoken about before, is a long game and a hard game. And it really helps to get some successes early. Like the thing I didn't talk about with Taya is that because of that, I was motivated to go through. And it wasn't like I was wanting more. It was that I tasted this success and I know what it could be like. And I knew that like it existed there, both in terms of financial and career and connecting to people and stuff. So I do think that each one of those things are the building blocks of your career and happiness in a field. And I don't think you should slog around in a business if you aren't happy. And if you aren't having some measures of success, then you won't be happy. So, I think that's sort of a reality of the situation, but the taste of them is sweet. That's true.
Yeah. The thing I would add to that though, is the challenges are also what makes this job worth it, right? Like you have to love the challenges too, right? Because you have to enjoy taking on those aspects. And if you're doing it just for the highs, then I think it's going to be a tough road because there's no way to guarantee those, no way to predict those. And, I love the mechanics of trying to figure out a disaster too, right? It can be tough. It can be depressing. But it's embracing the good and the bad at the same time. So, I think the highs are really wonderful and need to be embraced. And, for me, I get too focused on the challenges as I was talking about. But I do think you need a balance there. So
yeah, and that leads right into the next question, which normally we go back and forth on. But the very good point here that Maria just asked, big wins are very inspiring. Along the lines of having writers come to you, what are less visible signs of success and smaller cues you're moving in the right direction? So that's the thing. We actually live within a realm of like many small victories. And for me, the overall victory per any client is the ability to publish again. It's the ability to give them another book, another shot, another opportunity to get that big hit, or just to continue with the happiness of writing and continue this process. And that can be filled with a lot of, challenges doesn't mean the negative thing. Challenges is like, you work out, it's a challenge, or you get fit at the end of it, so it's filled with challenges and some negatives. And I think there's a lot of those. So for me, it would be as simple as like the one publicity hit that we pulled out, or the one reprint of 2,000 copies, or earning back the advance on a $10,000 book deal. And you're going to be able to get more money for that author the next one, even if it's only 5,000 more. Like those kind of small things are really the glue that keeps it all together.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to list a third thing that was a career high, was actually selling a book that didn't get an enormous advance, but it took 18 months to sell it. We got pass after pass after pass. It was a weird book. It was a difficult book. I think it's an important topic. It's challenging in a number of ways. But getting to the point where we got that publisher on board for it, even though it has all these different challenges, even though so many people said, I don't know how to publish this, I don't see it, whatever it was, those successes are just as big to me as winning an award or having that big deal, because that's a book where we fought for it, we scrapped for it, and sometimes that victory is just as sweet and just as important. So those quote unquote smaller successes, they're all steps, right? Every step on the road, every step you get to make that's a forward step is an exciting one, and deserves to be celebrated. So every book deal, every contract renewal, every big publicity hit, every starred review, whatever it is, those things are that's your bread and butter. That's what your business is built on, and recognizing that, I think, is really important.
Yeah, and you stick around for your clients, and again, maybe a client's career doesn't work out, or maybe it works out just fine and they're a mid-list author, and they can be happy with that or not. Some of that's on them. What you do is the best that you can for them.
Exactly.
And sometimes those authors are really going to succeed 4 books down the line, and it's still you sticking it out for them. You know what I mean?
There's so many New York Times best-selling writers out there right now, major authors who 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I thought they were dead. I was like, that career's over. That's a shame. They seem like a nice guy. And then I look around later and I'm like, oh shit, they're on top of their game. They're doing huge deals and selling, tens of thousands of books. And it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Perseverance is so important.
There's an author named Lisa Wingate, who my old boss, Claudia Cross, repped and did like, I don't know, 15, 20 books for her. And a book of hers hit the list and was on for like a year. And I was like, it was just like so inspiring. It was just so inspiring. So, it's nice. It's nice to see those things. So, any other questions that you want to have? Yeah, we're bored. We bored you out today, and that's okay. We appreciate you being here.
I mean, it's a little bit of a tricky topic to have a lot of questions about, but yeah, we're at 2:00 here, so let's go ahead and call it. Thank you guys as always for tuning into Agent Talk. We hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. We hope you find it useful. I know it's a little bit of a different format today. As a reminder, as Seth talked about, we've been doing this for 3 months straight, pretty much. This is our 12th episode, doing it weekly. We have had an absolutely incredible time talking to all of you about our experiences, about the challenges that, we face, that new agents will face, aspiring agents will face. And, I hope that has been useful to some extent. As we're heading into the fall, as we're coming out of like slow publishing summer and, with the pandemic still, with, having to do distance learning, all that, we are going to pause for a few weeks here and sort of figure out how we want this format to go forward. I think we both believe in this project and really enjoy doing it. So, hopefully we're going to find a way to make it work. Mainly keep an eye on the Twitter account, and we'll do announcements there about when we're coming back and how we're coming back. That Twitter account is at Agent Talk Show. There it is. So make sure you follow that account. Make sure to keep an eye on it there. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll get updates there. So we will be back posting new episodes, hopefully by the end of September. Any last words?
Before you do your sign off here, I just want to say something. This is something Dongwon and I had talked about, which we hadn't really got around to doing, for real. But this is the last, 2 minutes of 12th episode. So if you're here with us live, or if you've come through this process live, I want to offer something to you guys. If in the process of you trying right now, trying to get a job, an internship, or an assistantship or something like that, I want to personally offer you guys, the ability to reference this show and to talk to us, or to talk to someone about us, or someone, because like I want to let people know what we've been doing here, which has been giving you some form of groundwork. I think that I truly believe if you listen to the show that you are at least better off than you were before, and I'm willing to back that up. So if there's a situation where we somehow can be helpful, like, we're trying to do this not in a box. We're trying to do this to help push the industry in a certain direction. And while I might not be able to sit down for an hour in the next few weeks, and we want to try and continue it, if you need help along these lines and you've been here with us, we want to be here with you. So if there's anything we can do, you have our socials, which we're about to throw at. Mine is at Seth A.S. Fishman. Reach out and we'll be here for you, because I think it's really an important part of this process, and we really wish you guys the best.
Yeah, I mean, you can tweet at us, you can DM us, email us. If you have questions, if you're running into challenges, these are things that we clearly we both enjoy trying to help people out and trying to help people get established in this business. I think it's really important to keep bringing new talent in and new voices into the industry. So it's a tough time out there in a number of ways, but I think as publishing is becoming more and more remote, hopefully there'll be more opportunities out there too. So reach out to us. We're here for y'all, and we do this because we love doing it. We're making no money from this. This is not serving our careers in any major way. This is really a project of of faith in the industry and a desire to build a better business for us overall. So any last words, Seth, before we sign off here?
Love you guys.
All right. Until we're back, be good, read more, and publish better. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.